Hello, everybody. This is the Kubernetes SIG architecture meeting for February 11th, 2021. Please treat each other with respect. And let's get started. Pretty short agenda today. First item is from Derek. And Derek reached out earlier today saying he couldn't make it today, but just wanted to raise everybody's attention on this. So we had this come up since we did in 121 for the first time. We made production readiness review required for all the new caps coming in. One item that came up is that SIG node was adding some new gRPC endpoints to existing kubelet gRPC APIs. And so the question came up of whether those should be protected by a feature gate and how to evolve those APIs. So what we ended up doing and through discussion was say that yes, they should be protected by a feature gate, and that with the feature gates off, because the way gRPC works, you can't remove them completely, but what you can do is reply saying that they're not enabled or not supported or not implemented or whatever, some sort of appropriate error message. So that Derek had wanted to raise that as kind of general principle of how we would evolve these kinds of APIs. He couldn't make it today, but he just wanted to let everybody know he's going to put a doc together, send it out for review. And so the folks here that are interested in this, please take a look at that when he does send it out. And then we'll move that into some sort of contributor guidance PR once that's done, once that's agreed upon. So any thoughts or comments on that, or I think it's probably appropriate to just wait for the doc, but if anybody wants to say anything, please do. Okay. Then next item on the agenda, SOD.
Yes, so from SIG storage, we have a effort called CSI migration, and the goal here is to move all our entry drivers to CSI as part of a larger effort that's going on within Kubernetes to remove all cloud provider specific code. So we're going through plugin by plugin and figuring out what the migration plan and strategy is. So with vSphere, the vSphere CSI driver actually introduces a new set of kind of richer functionality. So it depends on newer versions of vSphere. And what this means is that when this migration happens from entry to CSI, older versions of vSphere are not going to work with the CSI driver. And the goal with migration is that it should be seamless, that the user shouldn't notice. So to address this, the folks at VMware are putting out a deprecation notice in this release, Kubernetes 121, to say that older versions of vSphere and older hardware versions will no longer be supported by Kubernetes. And so the question here is the deprecation policy says the behavior must function for no less than 1 year after their announced deprecation. We would like to be able to enable this migration feature as beta on by default, hopefully prior to a year, because pushing it out that far would jeopardize this larger migration effort and larger cloud extraction effort. So the question to SIG architecture is to clarify this deprecation policy, and the question is, does on by default violate this policy in this case? And if so, is there any way to get an exception around that?
So in my opinion, and I don't know what's written specifically, but in my opinion, I would treat this similarly to APIs in that it's on by deprecated means on by default isn't the same as removal. And the deprecation is a warning that there will be a removal. So would require an action required release note saying, hey, if you're using this, in this new release, this is on by default, and so you need to turn it off by default, or you need to turn it off rather, if you are an older version of vSphere. But I don't believe that it would be a violation of the deprecation policy to change the default. I don't know if others on the call have a similar or different opinion.
The first sentence in that section talks about significant user visible behaviors which impact the correctness of applications running on Kubernetes, or that impact the administration of Kubernetes clusters and which are being removed entirely. So saying, like, if you want to continue to use your cluster with an older vSphere during this deprecation, you have to turn off this migration feature. That still seems to be in the spirit of this, because it's not, the functionality is not removed entirely. It still can be used. It does require action. That's my take.
And I think one other, I think, note to add is, I guess, when we do turn it on by default, we have to make sure that it doesn't leave any side effects, so that if someone runs into problems and turns it off, it won't, put them in a messed up state.
Right. I would ask if we're exercising the turn the feature off and use it with a legacy version scenario in tests in any way. That seems useful to do.
Okay, so that actually helps us a lot, which means we can go ahead and enable this on by default before the 1-year deprecation policy. And then I guess the only remaining bit is actually deleting the entry code. It seems like that would have to wait until at least 1 year. Is that right?
That's my take. What do other people think?
I'm over here nodding vigorously with my camera off.
Good job, Tim.
Okay. And I think, is Walter on the line? I think that more or less aligns with the current timeline laid out by Walter for having code deleted. I think they wanted it done by 124. And so if we're talking about 125, that seems feasible. Okay, I don't think we have any other concerns here then.
Yeah, I think this isn't completely related to this particular topic, but in our last CSI migration meeting, we were, there is sort of one dependency on kubelet. Basically, there's some behavior in kube controller manager that determines whether or not kubelet has the feature enabled. And I think we were trying to walk through the timing of that and when we can remove the behavior in the kube controller manager, and that might impact the code removal timeline, because we need to be able to support older versions of kubelet. So that might push out the timelines, but I don't think that's an issue we need to sort of resolve here. We can resolve that separately with SIG Cloud Provider.
Sounds good. All right, thank you. And you can hand it off to the next item.
Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, Hippie has put some things. See, I normally go through and pick things off the mailing list and put them on here, and I negligently did not do that this period. So, thank you, Hippie. You want to explain what each of these is?
Sure. These are ones I'm interested in. Feel free if anybody else wants to add other ones. The first one's one we haven't had any response to, and it's been within the conformance subproject noted that when we make a decision there about endpoints that are not eligible for conformance, we have to track that somewhere. So it ends up, up until this point, it's always been SQL magic within Zach's amazing API Snoop DB stuff. And it's not exactly accessible to the community or has a PRs for discussion on why. And I feel that's best done by the community within KK. So we generated a PR that puts the ineligible endpoints YAML within the conformance test data. So it's still governed by the same owner's file as what is part of conformance in order for us to have a good eye on that. And I just love some wider feedback or merging or whatever, just some thoughts on that so that we can move forward. Once that's done, the API Snoop reporting and database, everything will stop creating that query internally when we load, and we'll pull that from the main branch on KK.
So I think that's probably on me and Clayton and Aaron to review that list and make sure that that something didn't get in there that we don't think should be in there.
Totally fair.
And then other than that, it's all good.
Cool.
And then I guess the other item was that Tim's comment about. Was there anything we wanted to discuss about that? I mean, I don't think I replied to the thread, but I'm totally in support of putting a feature gate into the options and pushing it all the way through to Open API. I think that's useful.
I think there's some other complexities that I'd love to see and some really cool pioneering work by Jordan way early on that's kind of been it's been stopped for a bit. In addition to maybe adding that feature gate to the API and having that flow through somewhere in the Open API spec, we have to maintain that ineligible endpoints YAML because our logic for identifying what is a stable or GA or alpha endpoint relies on that string occurring. And then for the exceptions, having to do a lot of, there's no authoritative way to know if an API is stable, beta, or alpha. You just have to kind of get a feel for it.
Well, you mean,
and,
I mean, it's in the version for the whole API, but you're saying for an individual field?
No, there's probably 10 APIs that don't have alpha or beta in a way
So
that's easy to tell.
That's especially true for like sub-resources or things that fall outside the versioned API structure, like the discovery endpoints. I will say that like, looking at the OpenAPI doc generated from a server that explicitly turned on all alpha and beta features is probably not the right way to understand all the features you need to test. If you pull that doc from a server that's only running GA features, then it will only include GA endpoints and types. And so
well, one point, Jordan, you set up a job that runs specifically tests against a cluster setup with only GA API. So that would be the place to pull it from, is from that job.
Yeah, so I don't object to putting information in OpenAPI. I think that's useful even for other consumers, but specifically the doc that is being looked at is being pulled from a server that is running a mix of alpha and beta features. And so, yes, we could be clearer in that doc, but if you want to know what's GA, pull that schema doc from a server that's only running GA features.
Is there, so for the authoritative place for that, we've been pulling from that Open API spec is in the repo, and that's probably, it's like you said, it's generated as far as any time there's a change to the Open API spec, we update that file to show it across. Is there a particular place we could push a list of GA features? Could we stick it in test conformance test data and have the GA spec, the GA, yeah, just because then that's really helps define our conformance program to this is what we're looking for. You must have, we don't currently have a really nice concise list of what should be part of conformance, hence the creation of ineligible endpoints. We could try to spin one up, but I think that we should have somewhere within the community where that's so clearly defined, like this is GA only, Open API operation IDs and types.
I mean, I don't think I have, at least that first blush, any objection to if you want to put in the tooling to add that to what gets add as long as it's clearly the name of the file makes it clear it's GA only, open API spec, not, and doesn't cause confusion with the other one that's checked into the repo. Putting it there in the conformance area makes sense. That's actually kind of nice. It gives a clearer picture of, hey, this is what's subject to conformance, even if the tests are insufficient to cover all of it.
My only concern is the size of the file, because I think the current open API spec is 5 meg, and this will probably be 2 to 3 meg. And so adding a secondary 2 to 3 meg file to KK, I feel like I don't have the authority to force that on everybody. But I do like the, go ahead.
I was just going to say that would not be the worst offender, which is both sad and maybe means it would be okay. I don't know what.
I'm not pioneering large file committee.
Just digging.
I'll go ahead and do it, and then if there's if not enough people complain, then we'll get that authoritative list, which we've been looking for a long time. Thanks for that suggestion, Jordan.
All right, that is the end of our agenda, and I, for one, am happy to give back time. If I will give others an opportunity to say anything if they want. Any other comments before we go? Okay, thank you very much, and have a great weekend. We're almost there. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.